Tanya Tagaq, Retribution. Look, I'll admit, I only checked this thing out because of Austin's end-of-year list on the Needle Drop website. But I had actually heard of Tanya Tagaq because of her collaborations with Bjork on the album Medulla. I just hadn't checked out her solo work. What I did know is that Tanya Tagaq provided the throat singing for that Bjork track, Ancestors. And Medulla, happens to be one of my favorite Bjork albums, but then again, every Bjork album is my favorite Bjork album. Throat singing is pretty interesting. It's certainly not a very accessible style of vocal, but for me it was really intriguing how Tanya would be able to bring it into the modern age, and goodness me, I almost wasn't ready. This record made me so uncomfortable and so terrified because Tanya was creating different sounds and noises and effects with her voice, and they were just so out there and so wild and primal that I was so overwhelmed. Sometimes I'm hearing her emit a deep growl, sometimes I'm hearing her pant like a dog almost, sometimes I'm hearing her cackle like a very wild laugh, and it's just a roller coaster of emotions. And I know that's a cliche, roller coaster of emotions, but this is serious. This is like a little more than just a roller coaster. And for goodness sake, don't listen to this thing at 2 AM like I did, because it's going to make you feel like you're being possessed. I mean, in all seriousness though, this album is haunting as hell, and I can respect that completely. Nightmarishly composed and performed, it did give me Bjork vibes, but Tanya kind of brings her own spin on this art pop sort of genre, obviously with her throat singing. But each song where Tanya and other throat singer vocalists create different sounds and voices and emotions, things really become like a stew of different feelings, especially those of anger and fear. And even when she's not throat singing, things still are very terrifying, like on that title track, Retribution. Whilst you're hearing those shrieking violins, you're also hearing Tanya narrate, and this narration describes very disturbing images of gore and violence and murder, and it's definitely unsettling for someone who's just come out of the comfort of listening to Quero Quero Bonito, which was 100% me. LOL. The final track is a cover of Nirvana's Rape Me, which was originally a very angsty and abrasive song from Nirvana, but here Tanya really brings her own spin on this track and kind of completely reinvents this song. Here the almost whispery vocals make the lyrics sound even more unsettling, and it becomes like a very haunting and disturbing song. And it totally works in the context of the album. There was only one track here that felt kind of out of place, and when I say out of place, it really was out of place, and that was the track Center, featuring Shad, the rapper. And this thing is actually just legit a hip-hop track, which completely sticks out like a sore thumb on this album. You still have Tanya's throat singing in the instrumental, but Shad's rapping, even though I don't think it's a bad song. I think it would have been better if it were released as its own single, because Shad actually has a good flow over this very unusual beat. But I think in the context of the record, it really doesn't fit, because you have all these insane, fear-inducing primal songs, and suddenly, out of nowhere, you have this hip-hop track with a rap verse that's actually quite catchy and kind of got this groovy beat. It doesn't really fit. Though overall, this album has probably got to be the scariest album that I've heard in 2016. I mean, I'm not sure if there are scarier albums that were released this year, but certainly out of everything I've decided to listen to this year, this has to be the most fear-inducing, and I have nothing but respect for that. I know I'm labeled... Wow, I've got a really sore throat. I definitely shouldn't try throat singing. Even though I've kind of labeled this thing constantly as a very scary album with terrifying things, don't underestimate how amazing some of the composition work on this album is, and of course the performances and just how well this thing builds up tension and fear in the listener. This whole thing is very well done. It portrays a lot of strong, raging emotions, which I was very underprepared for, but completely amazed by regardless. Seriously, give it a go if you dare. 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Gotta give it that.